What's up, guys? Dr. Seth back to help you solve your powerlifter problems. So when it comes to autoregulation, when we're making training decisions, we want to make those training decisions as best as we can. When we're regulating our training based on how we feel, we don't always want to be telling ourselves we feel like shit, and we don't always want to be limiting ourselves because we really don't want to be undershooting all the time just because we think that we might need to. On the flip side, we also don't want to be full send all the time and just using the guise of autoregulation to overshoot shit because we're telling ourselves we feel good. When it comes to autoregulating well, it's a matter of two things. Number one, understanding how do we actually feel on the day. Number two, we need to understand where we are in the training cycle and how where we are should influence our decision making and how hard we push things. Because if we are further from the meet, my bias is going to be to live to fight another day. I'm going to make my training decisions based on trying to make further into the meet, further along the training cycle better. So that means if I'm further out from a meet, I'm going to be less sendy and more conservative to make sure that I can be sendy towards the end of a meet. So even if I feel pretty good early on in a training cycle, if it's kind of I'm going to err on the side of caution just to make sure that I get myself to the end of the cycle and I can push when I need to. On the flip side, if I'm at the end of a meet prep and things are feeling a little bit off, I'm going to be more biased to forcing it to happen and making it happen, getting myself up to find a way to get myself in a position where I actually can perform on that day or perform to a high level on that day, because it's the end of the meet prep, and if I want to peak well, if I want to make it to the meet well, I need to display enough strength in the gym in order to do that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to try to overshoot. I'm not going to try to display strength in the gym for the sake of displaying in the gym, but it's going to be a matter of displaying enough to get to the meet so that I can display it on the platform. And a lot of people will kind of get messed up because if they go too sendy, too far away from the meet, they're going to be banged up and they're going to be run down by the time they need to go big at the end of the prep. And then they're playing catch up, having to back off when they shouldn't or when they shouldn't want to back off. And if we can set up the early stages of meet prep as smooth, as conservative, as, I don't want to say easy as possible, but as smooth running as possible so that we can have a climb as we peak, that's going to set us up better to peak harder, peak better, and have a better meet day. On the flip side, if we cook things early on, we're running a really high level early on, and we get run down and we have to pull back as the meet approaches, that's the exact opposite of what we want to be doing. We want to be sending it, we want to be going for it, we want to be pushing ourselves at the end of a prep. And going back to understanding how we really feel, a lot of times, I kind of have to ignore how I feel on my early warm-up sets, and I need to not let that get into my head because it's powerlifting, it's hard, we are stiff. Sometimes we do things through the day that will make us not feel too great when we're initially getting under the bar. And if we don't feel great on our first couple warm-up sets and we let that get in our head, we might be limiting ourselves more than we need to just because we're telling ourselves we're screwed. And what I always try to do on my early warm-up sets is be as optimistic as possible, try to remove my thinking brain from the equation and just put myself in good position, get as tight as I can, push into the bar as hard as I can, and usually that allows me to feel better than if I would have just started overthinking if the empty bar feels like crap. Because let's face it, there's a lot of times where the empty bar feels heavier than we want it to be, and a lot of those days you can turn around and you can make pretty productive. That doesn't mean that we need to force it to happen, but that does mean that we need to not let it totally screw us over if it doesn't feel great. And if things don't feel great as you continue to work up, if you can't get out of it, that doesn't mean bang your head against the wall. That doesn't mean get frustrated. That doesn't mean beat yourself up for it. That means be aware that there is something going on outside of your control and that you might need to scale back so that you can have a productive day today and, more importantly, have a more productive day tomorrow. Because that really is the name of the game with autoregulation. We are trying to adjust the day that we're on as optimally as we can I know I said optimal. I hate that word. Sorry about that, guys. But we're trying to adjust the day that we're on as well as we can to set us up for the best tomorrow, the best 2 weeks from now, the best 3 weeks from now, the best 10 weeks from now, so that we can have the best meet possible. And sometimes that's going to mean pushing it. Sometimes it's going to mean pulling back. And what I want you guys to kind of think about or learn to understand is when to push it, when to pull back. And the only way you're going to do that is by trying, is by experimenting, is by making mistakes and learning from them. And what I see way too many lifters do is they always want to go sendy because they always think that's the answer. And sometimes it does work out, but sometimes it doesn't. Now, lifters want to pay attention to the times that going sendy does work out. They want to ignore the times when it doesn't because they still want to keep going sendy. What I want you guys to do is, if sending it doesn't pan out super well, pay attention to what was going on in that session, pay attention to the signs, and then learn from that so the next time you feel the same way, you can make a better choice and better adjust your training. Because that really is it. You got to learn how you feel, learn to feel how you feel, learn to expect how that is going to affect training, and then learn to know how pushing training versus pulling back training will affect you based on how it feels. And obviously, it's more of an art than a direct science. There's more to it than just, having an algorithm of, oh, I feel this way, this is what I do. It will take time, it will take experience, but once you get there, it is really friggin' cool how well you can begin to manage your own lifting based on how you are feeling on a day, on a week, on a month, and knowing where you are in the training cycle. All right, guys, hopefully that wasn't too confusing for you. Thank you for watching. Drop a comment below, share with your friends, and check out the links in the bio. We are working on a training app right now. It is incomplete. I have some programs up there. I think I have one rehab layout up there right now for the ankles and Achilles, but the plan is to continue building those out, put a couple more programs up in there every single week until it is awesome. But for now, check her out. Let me know if you have any questions. Peace out, guys. Don't be afraid of training.